I think you talk a little bit too much, Paul. I think you're a little talkative. I think, we need to rein you in a little bit. It's just blah, blah, malt, blah, blah, scotch is great, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, just over and over again.
All right. You know what? You're right. Scotch sucks.
Yeah, now we're talking. Yeah,
Bourbon's
I like
the
it.
best. All right. So we'll just get rid of the scotches up here. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Whiskey Uncut. I'm Paul, and this is James, and he's representing Bourbon Sippers. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you head over to the podcast service of your choice to listen to the full show. On YouTube, we're just breaking out a few specific sections, but the podcast is the full uncut show. And if you're looking for the best bourbon content around, make sure you check out Bourbon Sippers' website, as well as their Instagram and Facebook page. Those are pretty large communities. So there's a lot of great content there, written reviews, etc. And finally, if you'd like to support us, make sure you head over to patreon.com/maltmondays, where we have a few different tiers set up for as low as $2 a month. And I think we're going to be having some merch sometime in the future is the plan, right, James?
Yeah, I think I'm working on some Bourbon Sipper stuff now, too. So once we finalize that, we can get some stuff for the podcast.
Cool. So today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about young whiskeys. We brought this up kind of by accident last week, talking about, I think you asked what the best young scotch was, right?
Yeah, I think I was interested in what your cutoff point was. Like, what's the minimum age to have a solid scotch?
Yeah, and I said my favorite age is right around 15 years. I find the 15 to 18 year mark is kind of where whiskey starts tasting noticeably older around 18 years. And so I kind of like younger, more vibrant whiskeys, youthful, as some people like to call them. So I feel like 15 years is kind of the magical point where scotch is mature, but it still has that vibrancy, and it doesn't start to just get too oaky and leathery. It's still got some of the grain characters in it. So we've got a few different whiskeys today. We have the Bruichladdich Islay Barley. We have, what is this? The Green Brier from Nelson Green Brier, their own distillate.
And I think that's 3 years, is that right?
Right now, it's a 3 to 4 year whiskey.
And I'm asking Paul because he just went to visit the distillery this week. I think when it first started, it was kind of a 2 year.
Right.
And I think they've moved up a little bit. Right?
And they told me that somewhat soon it's going to be a 4 year. They're getting to the point where their stock is pretty much all 4 years old. And so the plan is at some point soon to be, I don't know if they're going to ever age state it, but they said it's basically 4 years old at this point. So 3 to 4 year whiskey. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, you want to do the Nelson?
Yeah, let's do Nelson Green Brier. So I was just up at the distillery in Nashville, and it's a pretty sweet setup. Unfortunately, I couldn't actually see any of the distillery because of COVID.
Oh, they wouldn't even. Yeah, you can't do any tours right now, right?
Nope.
But you did get a tasting.
I did get a tasting.
And you met my boy Cliff.
Yep, I met Cliff.
Did Cliff tell you that he is a famous musician? Did you get into that conversation?
No, but we're in Nashville, so I just assumed.
Yeah, you got to talk to him about that. He's somewhat of a prodigy.
Is he?
Yeah, he was really, he toured with some really famous people, so.
Wow. So, yeah, he hooked me up. He let me try a couple of one of their products. So, for those who don't know, Nelson Green Brier also makes Belle Meade, which is
they release. Yeah. They release Belle Meade. But
I think it would be safe to say they do make it in the sense that they're aging it themselves, and they're blending the barrels themselves. And
yeah, they do blend it, and they do a lot of the finishes. They're doing the
finishing themselves. Yeah. So even though it's an MGP product, mostly in terms of the distillate, they chose the mash bill. They worked with MGP on the how it was distilled and stuff, as well as it's all in their hands after that. They're not just finding barrels in MGP's warehouse and pulling those. So there's a little more.
Yeah, and I love Nelson Green Brier. I mean, I wrote a couple articles for Bourbon Sippers on them. I've tried most of their products at some point or another. I think they do probably the best job of finishing bourbon that I personally have ever seen. Especially their cognac finish.
So
I think
where
is
were
fantastic.
they in the last episode of Finished Bourbons, James?
I just don't have that kind of cash to try to buy all those Bell Meads, but they do really good stuff. I mean, like I said last time, weird finishes like Tannat, Mouvet Dre, and things like that that you don't see anywhere
Or the
else.
honey.
Oh, dude, I got the first batch of the honey. And for those of you who haven't tried it, it's not like, Tennessee honey or anything like that where they actually add honey to the whiskey. They finish it in a barrel that was used to age honey. And so you get honey notes in it, but it's not overwhelming. It was ridiculous. People line up for days to get like one bottle of their honey cask.
Yeah, Cliff was telling me about that. He was
It's ridiculous.
Even as a representative of the company, he's like, I kind of don't understand.
Yeah, it's totally different. It's super weird. And, I really liked it. I had one that was sort of light on the honey. I had one that was really heavy on the honey. The one that was heavy, it was almost like it was good, but like you're going to drink a full glass of like honeyed whiskey. Not. The other one I liked better because it just gave it enough of a nuance that I could almost make an old fashioned out of it without putting any extra sugar in it. But it's tasty. I like their wine finishes. I like their cognac a lot.
Isn't the secondary on that like insane?
Oh, it's stupid.
Like it's like Pappy.
Yeah.
Level.
Yeah. And, they come out with it just a couple times. There's not too many barrels of it. So I think it's pretty rare.
So,
and people, it reminds me a little bit of Stranahan Snowflake, like where people just line up for it.
I really want to try that.
It's been one of the things on my list for a while.
Yeah. As a single malt drinker, I would really like to try, because I have a bottle of Stranahan's, like the regular product that I really enjoy. But I'd like to try the Snowflake. But yeah, Cliff told me that. So basically, Nelson Green Brier's got the Bell Mead line, which has like the Reserve,
which is a great whiskey.
Yeah,
the Reserve's fantastic.
Which I think is the cask strength version of Bell Mead. So they have Bell Mead Reserve, and then they have their finishes, which their regular lineup is Sherry, XO, and Madeira. I think
so. Yeah, the Madeira used to not. I don't think it was always in the regular lineup, but now it is.
And beyond that, they have their, like you were saying, they just release them at the distillery, and the way they've been doing it is literally they don't tell anyone when it's going to be now, because it was causing such a problem apparently of too many people loving their product.
Yeah, that must be rough.
Yeah,
that's a tough thing to deal with.
They're just dropping it. They have a limited supply. And I mean, limited, like they're pulling a few barrels. This isn't like a huge batch. And they're just dropping it randomly one day a year, and it's only sold at the distillery. And when it's gone, it's gone. He let me try it was cognac finish, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, the cognac is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other, we should do one on cognac too, because I have a couple other cognac bourbons that I like. I think it adds something to bourbon.
I don't think I've got anything finished in cognac.
Yeah,
except maybe an Octomore.
Oh, goody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like all their products. I think they do a really good job with their stuff. And this is on the young side, like we said. And
this is their distillate that we're going to taste here. So this is their distillate, not the Bell Mead, which is MGP.
And I think what I like about this one is
it smells amazing.
It does.
I would never have guessed that this was a 3-year-old.
It's impressive that you can get this kind of a nose out of a 3-year. There's no question it tastes young. Like you're not going to drink this and think that it's a 10 or a 12-year whiskey.
No, but I would have maybe guessed 5, 6.
Yeah.
I mean, the color's a little too light for a bourbon or Tennessee whiskey. Sorry.
Same thing.
Well,
it's bourbon through a charcoal or through a maple filter.
Yeah, they made sure to make me very aware that it's Tennessee whiskey.
We'll talk about that sometime.
Yeah. So, but it's a wheated mash bill, and I think it retails for $45, $50. It's not really distributed around yet, but I think they've just now they had a soft launch. And COVID kind of screwed it up.
I saw it at ABC today.
And it's just now.
I think it was 30 or 35.
And 30, 35?
Yeah.
I would definitely go buy another bottle of that.
Yeah, I mean, for that price point, I think it's really good. It's it has some of that young grain quality to it, but I kind of like it. I like that in some products. It's not over oaked, obviously, at this age. It's got a lot of flavor profile to it. I think they do a good job with it.
Yeah, I get a little bit of the citrus from the wheat. I get some just like cherry fruits, like nice, like not super dark fruit, but like mixed berry, mixed peel kind of stuff. A little bit of maybe sugar cookie kind of flavor.
So one of the things I've always picked up in this, and I'm probably crazy, so you can tell me if I'm wrong. I get a slight spearmint note to it.
Yes.
And I don't. Okay,
absolutely.
Good. I don't know where that comes from, because if I look at the mash bill and I look at what they're doing, I wouldn't think there would be any spearmint on it. But you get a little bit on the nose, and it almost finishes like with a little spearmint.
Yep. And that was actually something when we did the tasting there with this next to the Bell Mead. So the Bell Mead is a high rye. It's like 30% rye.
Yeah.
And so doing these two side by side, what was really interesting was as soon as after you tasted the Bell Mead and you went back to this, it was just mint like crazy. And then when you went to the Bell Mead, it was just dill all over the place. Like because all the similar flavors and aromas cancel out, and so you only get left with the
unique aspects of them. Yeah.
But I think this is probably I'm gonna go out and say I think this is my favorite $35 bottle of
anything
American whiskey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think
I've had.
Certainly when you compare it, like I like Uncle Nearest. I think this is better to me than the Uncle Nearest I've had.
Uncle Nearest just tasted like Jack Daniels to me. Whatever their cheapest one.
Yeah, I think it's
the 1850. I think
the 1856.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's their kind of mid-range one. I think that's sourced from Dickel. So this is definitely a different flavor profile, and this is kind of a resurrected mash bill too, right? Like this is a recipe that they found that they're sort of reviving, which I think that's part of it. It's a great story.
It's the OG, their great triple great grandfather from the 1800s, his recipe for Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah, and sometime we have to have them on. I've talked to Cliff a couple times about maybe having them on and talk about their products. They have a great story, and I think it's really fun to drink a product that, this is probably what it tasted like when they originally released it, 100 plus years ago. That's kind of a cool thing to think about.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how similar it actually is, because even if the mash bill's the same, the wood and everything else is going to be different. So I'd be interested to know, like, he said like they had old bottle. I think they found a bottle of the original that he got to try with the.
I think they have one in the actual shop, but if you weren't able to do a
we
tour,
weren't able
you probably
to
didn't see it. But I think they have one in a case in there. Yeah.
But yeah, I had a fantastic time. So thank you, Cliff, for showing us around. And it did not influence my opinion. While I was there, I smelled it and I was immediately like, I really like this.
Now, do they still have the single barrel offerings? Did they have any in the gift shop? Did you?
I don't think so.
Okay, because if you guys haven't had any of the old picks, because they used to do a lot of private picks, and some of the groups I were in picked from them early on, and they're absolutely legendary. Their single barrels were just off the charts tasty. So I'm hoping at some point, once they sort of build up stock and they're able to keep up with demand. Right now, the whiskey world's crazy. Everybody wants bourbon and everybody wants Tennessee whiskey. So
I'm just excited I can go buy this at a store.
Right. So I'm hoping that once they get there, they'll start doing those single barrel offerings again, because those were really outstanding. They were, easily on my shelf, and you've seen my shelf before. Even amongst bourbon, like those stood out on my shelf.
Yeah. No, I told him, like, I cannot wait to try this. As much as I like it at 3-ish years old, I cannot wait to try this when it's like 6 to 8 years old at some point, because as good as it is now, I think it'll just get better and better. And we've talked about kind of that 8-year mark, kind of being the sweet spot, 8 to 10.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough that I got one of they did an early release. It was a 375 bottle, and I think it was 2-year. And it tasted significantly younger than this. But the first thing I told Cliff, I was like, this is going to be good. Like I can tell that the base of it is good because it was already fairly tasty at 2 years. You get up to 3, 4. This is much better than it was, that I remember that bottle being. I think when it gets to 5, 6, it's going to be a really outstanding and interesting bottle.
Yeah, here I'm gonna give Tyler a wee.
We're paying taste. Tyler for his his services.
I forgot to introduce Tyler, our producer, the hand that just reached from the ether.
and by the way, Tyler, we have you slotted for some competitions later, so we're gonna do best bottle and worst bottle competitions, and you're gonna be the judge.
Yep, as the person who has literally no bias because you just started drinking.
Yeah, the only thing is I got to think about if he can handle like 140 proof. Or something like that. He's shaking it. Yeah, he's going to be okay.
I think it'll be fine.
So, by the way, I've been sharing the podcast around to my friends. Everybody likes it. They're listening to it while they travel. But there is a comment that they've made.
Oh dear.
That I want to bring up to you. So, I don't. If you notice, the podcasts are a little long.
Yeah.
Right. So we were 140 last time. We were 120.
Yeah.
Or 140 the first time, 120 last time. I think you talk a little bit too much, Paul. I think you're a little talkative. I think, we need to rein you in a little bit. It's just blah, blah, malt, blah, blah, Scotch is great, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like just over and over again.
All right. You're right. Scotch sucks.
Yeah. Now we're talking. Yeah.
Bourbon's
I like
the best. All right. So we'll just get rid of the Scotches up here. And
yeah, we're just going to talk about bourbon from now on.
Yeah.
Now, which, in all honesty, like between these two, I would rather drink the Nelsons.
I think I would too.
Yay, for $30, right?